Welcome back to week 7 of the DSR channel. I wanted to start doing a series of builds based on player requests to really put into practice what I'm trying to do with this channel, where I'm trying to lower the barrier to entry for newer players. I'm trying to help role play forward players build good enough mechanical builds so that the character delivers on the fantasy of what they are trying to live. Um, and builds that are going to be fun to play. Fun as in you will feel effective at your role, but also it's not so complicated that you won't be able to focus on the role play and have fun. And role play tends to be the most important part of D&D for fun. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I've DM'd 10,000 hours. I can't tell you how many times I've seen crits and big damage rolls and all these kind of things like that. But if there's no role play around describing those actions that players are doing, it's actually pretty boring. I don't remember any significant dice rolls or anything like that. What I remember are big role play moments during combat where they did or said something awesome. Big role play moments out of combat based on ability checks and things like that. So we're still playing the game using the dice and rolling, but you got to involve role play all the way through, right? Role play is not just something for social encounters. Role play is something you do in every encounter: social, exploration, and combat encounters. And combat gets really boring if you stop role playing. So everybody should keep role playing. All right, and this one is based on a request from Jiggity John John, who wanted a Castlevania-themed World Tree Barbarian tank. And we went back and forth talking a little bit. So it's going to be Trevor Belmont at level 10. All right, and here are all the build choices you need to make from levels 1 to 10. So I've summarized it right here so you can just see really quickly as you're going through the character builder in D&D Beyond. These are the choices you need to make. Level 1, choose Barbarian. You get 2 skill proficiencies. Let's go with Perception and Survival. Those seem appropriate for Trevor Belmont. You get 2 weapon masteries. Got to be Whip and Longsword, although when you hit level 10, you'll want to stop using the Whip. And we'll just reflavor the other weapons. But until then, you're using the Whip. Okay, species, he's a human. You get 1 skill proficiency, pick your favorite. I chose Stealth. And then the origin feat that we get as part of being a human, I chose Tough because you're a tank. You're going to need those extra hit points. Our background will be Soldier. That seems to make sense for Trevor Belmont, although he's technically a monster hunter, not a soldier. But you can just reflavor your background to be Monster Hunter, and that doesn't affect your backstory in any way. We're going to want to take a +2 Strength and a +1 Constitution for that background. And for our ability scores starting off, you want to set your ability scores to 15 Strength with a +2 from your background, making it 17. Then you'll want to set your dexterity to 14, set your constitution to 15 with a +1 from background, making it a 16. And then you got 2 points left over, not a lot, and you can put those wherever you like, but seem to make most sense for wisdom, mainly because if you're going to be hunting monsters, especially vampires, you need the best wisdom saving throw you can get, and so just having that +1 or lack of a -1 there is helpful. So that's where I put it. You can move it around. Seems like he shouldn't have a high charisma. He's pretty acerbic and sarcastic in his nature. Kind of irritates everybody. So I think 8 charisma really makes sense for him. At level 3, we're choosing our subclass, World Tree Barbarian, right? That's what we're going for. That's what was requested. And we get a choice for Primal Knowledge of 1 more skill. Again, pick your favorite. I don't think it's critical to the build anymore. In this case, I chose Animal Handling. So maybe it'll come in handy. Level 4, we get another weapon mastery, so we'll choose Battle Axe, and we can reflavor that as any of the weapons from the Castlevania game series, the Bardich, whatever we need to. And we get to choose a feat, which we're going for Mage Slayer, right? Which is going to be really important for our monster hunting because whenever we fail once per short rest, any kind of intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throw, we can just succeed instead. That's going to help us a ton because we have pretty poor intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. So we're going to really need that. And it gives us a +1 strength. So great. So we'll put that in +1 strength. That rounds our strength up to 18, which is exactly what we want. This is our primary ability score for both combat and actually out of combat, which I'll talk about later. And Mage Slayer gives us some other benefits when you're fighting any creatures that are concentrating on spells. So some nice additional things. Although they removed spell casting from vampires, so maybe they won't come up as much. Depends on your DM and whether or not they're going to tweak your vampire bad guys. and other monsters you may face. Okay, moving on to level 8. So there's no more build choices between levels from levels 5 to 7. It's just you level up and everything is chosen for you. Level 8, you get another choice of a feat, and we're going to just choose ability score increase for +2 more strength. That brings our strength to 20. That increases our damage, our chance to hit, increases all of our non-combat skill usage using primal knowledge. So strength actually does a lot of things for barbarians now. And then finally, no choice at level 9, and finally at level 10, we have the choice of one more weapon mastery. We'll go with Warhammer. We can use that for the cudgel weapons, cudgel and club type weapons that you can play in the game for flavor. It really doesn't matter which one of those we're using. Longsword, I think, is slightly better because it's going to help you live longer with the sap weapon mastery. So that's going to be a little better, but it's not a huge deal. We're talking about 1 attack per creature per round, maybe 2 if you hit 2 different creatures. So, and this is what your character ends up looking like. All right. So you've got 20 strength, 14 dexterity, 16 constitution, 8 intelligence. He makes some kind of poor decisions. 10 wisdom and 8 charisma. Proficiency bonus of +4. Your initiative bonus is a +2, but you have advantage because you're a barbarian, so that's great. An AC of 18 and hit points of 125. So you've got a lot of hit points. You can take a pretty good beating. And remember, while raging, you're going to have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. That's most of the damage types you're going to be taking. Now, you will regularly take some small portion of damage from other damage types, but it's going to be the minority still, even at this level. So maybe 10-ish, maybe 10, 15% of the damage you're taking is going to be coming from non-bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage types. So that rage is going to do a lot of work for you. All right, we got to an 18 AC because we're using a shield and a breastplate. Now, I very much am a strong believer in using you're going to have some magic items and money in these builds, right? It's not at all reasonable that you're level 10 and still using your starting equipment. And the 2024 Player's Handbook has a table suggesting at what levels are a reasonable amount of treasure you should have as a character. And we'll look at that in a sec here. But so I use that to get a longsword +1, and you can see that I renamed it, customized it, and because you're welcome to reflavor anything you want. That's actually right baked into the game. Part of the rules is that you should be reflavoring things to fit the theme of what you're trying to play with this in the fantasy you're trying to play with this character. So so I renamed the longsword +1 to a vampire slayer chain whip. I renamed the shield to bracers because, in the cartoon and the games, he's not walking around with a shield, but that doesn't mean we can't have bracers maybe blocking some of the damage, and he does wear those bracers. And then I renamed the breastplate that I bought with the money he got from being a higher level to a wolfhide cloak, providing slightly better armor class for him. That raises armor class from a 17 to an 18. So we're going to have an 18 armor class, which is decent. If we use reckless attack, which we probably often will, that's going to make it easier for creatures to hit us, but you still want the highest AC you can possibly get, even though you're taking reckless attack. Don't just give up on your AC because you're just going to get, that rage is only going to do so much for you, that rage resistance. You're going to get just hammered into the ground if you have a low AC, use reckless, and you're trying to be a tank. So still get the highest AC you can get. Use reckless probably often, maybe not always. If you start to get low, back off on it. And then you got those hit points doing a lot of work for you. And here's that table I was talking about. This is copied right out of the 2024 Player's Handbook. These are at, if you're starting at higher levels, which, this person requested that the build for level 10. So we're starting at level 10. And you can see at level 10, you should have at least 500 gold pieces on top of whatever you started with, plus a random amount of little extra gold pieces, and then 1 common and 1 uncommon magic item. And I think that this is very reasonable for the kind of low end of the number of magic items you'd have. In fact, they probably should have one more category, like the 5 to 10 range should probably be split up into 2 ranges. Because if you make it to level 10 and you have only 500 gold pieces and 1 magic item, 1 uncommon level magic item, I think you should contact your in-game attorney because I think you have a claim against your DM. You probably played for 6 months and you have 1 magic item. That's rough. Yeah. Talk to your DM. And these are your key combat features that you're going to be wanting to be leveraging during combat. So first up is rage, right? You're a barbarian and all of your subclass abilities are usually tied to rage, and you have a bunch of other abilities also tied to rage. So rage is your premier ability. So yes, our subclass Vitality of the Tree feature, Branches of the Tree feature, and Instinctive Pounce, which is from the base class, all three of those are tied to Rage. So when you Rage and have Rage going, you can leverage all those. Vitality of the Tree is going to be giving you temporary hit points and your allies temporary hit points. I would reflavor that in some sort of way of like you just, being tough, and then using your whip to like block attacks for your allies, right? And he has a really long range with that, so you're like giving temporary hit points. That's the mechanics of what's happening, but really you're using the whip. I would describe it in game as using the whip to deflect attacks from your allies, Sifa and Alucard. Then you have Reckless Attack, another Barbarian feature that gives you advantage on your attacks, and Brutal Strike. So Brutal Strike is your level 9 ability. Once on your turn, when you make an attack with Reckless Attack, you can instead forego the advantage. And we're going to leverage that when I get to the combat loop. So then we have 4 weapon masteries: push, sap, slow, and topple. And you can change one of those on every long rest. So you're not stuck with slow from the whip. And your level 10 barbarian ability, World Tree Barbarian ability, doesn't work with the whip. So you might want to swap that one for something else that does work with the whip. It needs to have the versatile property or the heavy property on the weapon for it to work with your level 10 feature. So you might want to switch that for something like the trident that you can throw and will topple, or maybe the javelin that you can throw that has a longer range and it will slow. Then we have Mage Slayer, that feat that we got, and Battering Roots, which is our level 10 feature. That's the one that allows us to, gives us increases our reach by 10 with any weapon that qualifies. Again, weapons that are versatile and weapons that have the heavy property. So if it has one of those properties, the reach increases by 10. So we're using a longsword, but we're still hitting creatures within 15 feet. Because your reach doesn't increase to 10, it increases by 10. So it was 5, now it's 15. So we're hitting people within 15 feet. And we can also push and topple on top of the base weapon property, which is sap, right? So you have sap on the longsword, you hit them and you got battering roots. You can also topple or push. We're probably going to use topple most of the time. Let's look at that combat loop. So here's your basic combat loop. Whenever an enemy starts their turn, and if they're threatening one of your allies in any way, and even if they're not, even if all the enemies are adjacent to you, still use this. Use your reaction to teleport. Now, I would flavor this again as your whip, tying them up with your whip and dragging them closer, and then leaving their feet kind of tied up with a whip because it reduces their speed to 0. That's how I'd flavor it. So even if they're adjacent to you, still use this because you still want to prevent them from moving. And this happens at the start of the enemy's turn. So, whatever the big bad guys are, whichever one you might think is going to fail the saving throw, has the best chance to fail the saving throw, which is a strength-based saving throw, then use that on them to keep them next to you. And now they, all they can do is attack you, or perhaps Alucard, who's probably also adjacent to them, maybe, right? But you got Sifa in the back row. You want to keep everybody away from Sifa. So then on your turn, if you're not raging, bonus action is rage, and you do that first. Always start rage. And then your action is probably reckless attack. Like I said, you'll probably want to use that all the time unless you're pretty low on hit points and the party's struggling. Hopefully Sifa's got some healing for you, right, to keep you up. But maybe she's a wizard, so maybe you don't get any healing. So you might want to turn off reckless when you start to get low. But until that happens, you're going to use reckless. Okay, so your first attack, you will attack with advantage using we're gonna use I'm gonna do all this with a long sword. So you're gonna attack with advantage. You're gonna hit them within 15 feet with your long sword. That's gonna apply sap, which gives them disadvantage on their first attack on their next turn. And that applies to you, which means it's gonna cancel the disadvantage or the advantage they have against you because of reckless. So right, they're gonna have a straight roll against you instead of advantage. So that helps you. Now they might still decide to attack somebody else, but if they attack somebody else, they have disadvantage to attack them. So they're still encouraged to attack you by using reckless. It just makes it a lower chance they're going to hit you, going from advantage to a straight roll. So that's good. If you hit them, try to topple them, and that's from your level 10 feature, the battering roots. So try to topple them, and then apply savage attacker. Right, you've got it from your soldier background. Always use it on the first attack. Just roll your weapon damage twice and choose the higher. It's going to add a little bit. On average, it might add like 1 point of damage, but it's 1 point of damage, so go for it. It doesn't cost you anything. You only get to use it once per turn, so you might as well. All right, second attack. If the topple didn't work, then just do another reckless attack. You can't turn it off anymore, right? Once you start it on turn, it doesn't turn off until the beginning of your next turn. So go ahead and just make your regular reckless attack, hit him again, try to do the same thing, topple him on the second turn, on the second attack. Now, if you did topple him on the first attack, now switch to do brutal strike because they're prone, so you're still going to have advantage. Now, if you attack them from 15 feet away, you only get advantage if you're adjacent to them. So you'll want to move up so that you're adjacent and then attack them again, now still with advantage from being prone, and then you'll brutal strike to get the extra damage and apply hamstring or push, right? Push them further away from an ally or hamstring them so that even if they stand up, their movement is reduced by 15, which is a big movement penalty, and they're going to have a much harder chance reaching any of your allies. Now, Alucard is also a melee fighter, right? But Sifa's not, and you definitely want to keep everybody away from Sifa. So hamstring is great, or just push them further away from Sifa and then follow them and keep attacking, right? So that's your basic combat loop that you're doing. Pretty easy and straightforward. Barbarians are nice like that. And let's wrap this up by talking about your key non-combat features, which I love the change they made with Barbarians. It helps them so much. All right, so there's all the skill proficiencies I have on this build. You might have something else besides animal handling and stealth. There's a reason I chose stealth, or a couple of reasons I chose stealth. One, it applies to being a scout. So with that proficiency that I got from the human species combined with primal knowledge. So primal knowledge is interesting. It doesn't just give you one extra skill proficiency. What it says is while you're raging, all of those skills that I listed under primal knowledge, all of those now use your strength score instead of dexterity, wisdom, or charisma, right? So now they all use your strength score. But on top of that, while raging, right, and this is not listed under primal knowledge, this is listed under rage. While raging, you have advantage on strength ability checks. And primal knowledge specifically says it turns all of those into strength ability checks. So yes, these do work with your rage feature of having advantage now. So with all of those proficiencies listed under primal knowledge, you not only use your strength score, you have advantage for the whole 10 minutes of rage. And let's face it, rage is like a core feature of Trevor Belmont. That guy's angry all the time. He likes to be intimidating. And so you're going to boost all of these, and you have the ability, I mean, the option of using rage outside of combat, and it'll still last the 10 minutes to benefit one of these. So you're actually a really good scout now, or a certain kind of party face, right? You're not party face who's out there making friends and allies and negotiating with merchants to lower their prices. You're out there intimidating people. You're an awesome intimidator now. And frankly, player characters, half the time, they don't negotiate with merchants. They just try to intimidate them. They just try to threaten them, these poor commoners, for not giving them a big enough discount. Anyway, so you're actually got some decent features that are going to make you pretty good outside of combat. So you're no longer just a barbarian who sits around doing nothing when you're not in combat. You're now contributing to the party, which is great. So there's Trevor Belmont.